Detroit Lions. Most important offseason addition for the Lions. Do you have one ready to go? Another one where it's like, I like a lot of the stuff that they did, but choosing one was a challenge.
Right. Their sort of offseason, particularly the free agency portion of it, was good more because of the strategy than the individual, like an individual player. So it was the fact that they blanketed the secondary and brought in 3 players that should or could all start day one. That was the plus, not that like Cameron Sutton on his own is amazing.
That's who I chose Cameron Sutton because for this exercise we need one.
To pick somebody.
Yeah. So I took Sutton because of his versatility. Could play outside, can play in the slot, because he's very good, and he was probably the best of their offseason additions. But again, like if Emmanuel Mosley had a really good season coming off of injury, or Brian Branch broke out as the top nickel as a second rounder, or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was the best offseason addition, none of those would be surprising. But I'll take Cam Sutton as the guy for the Lions.
Any of their draft picks. I mean, in terms of if you want importance, Jahmyr Gibbs is now a very important draft pick because that was the one most roundly criticized. So for the sort of reputational integrity of everybody in Detroit, if he bombs, that would be very bad. It wouldn't even matter if like the rest of the draft ended up doing really well. If Jahmyr Gibbs is not good and is just like a fast guy that doesn't really do a whole lot in offense, they look like idiots because they took him 12 overall. So that's a really important draft pick for them. Equally, Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round is a really important draft pick for them because if he has like the first round upside that people were trying to talk about before the draft, they might have Jared Goff's replacement already.
Could be a steal. Yeah, the Gibbs one's interesting because as much as we push back against running backs, it's not that an individual running back in the right situation can't be important or valuable, right? I think Christian McCaffrey is important and valuable. I think Dalvin Cook, who's now a free agent, at his best, was an impact player. Derrick Henry was an impact player. The problem is, at any given point, there's 3 or 4 of them, and projecting which one it's going to be and then projecting when they're going to drop off and get hurt and no longer be is the tough one for running backs. If Gibbs becomes one of those top 5 most impactful running backs, and he truly is this offensive weapon that lines up outside and in the slot and with all the other speed and shiftiness that they have now on this offense, if Gibbs becomes that perfect satellite space player, then that's an important offseason addition. If the Lions got Jahmyr Gibbs and he is who they think he is. And if he's not, then it's like you said, it makes them look really bad picking him at 12.
Yeah, we had a very smart email at one point. Somebody that had gone through Eric Eager's white paper that you referenced, and having gone through it, was very surprised by some of the numbers in there and like how not complimentary to running backs they were, but how close running backs were to a lot of other positions in terms of WAR and all that kind of thing. Because, if you look last season, Christian McCaffrey had the highest WAR of any running back at .33, which is a pretty high number.
I mean, the answer to that is it's about the distribution, not the peak.
That's one answer to it. The other answer is I think for running backs, it is hyper-dependent on everything else around them. So the best example of that is Jonathan Taylor, right, who last season had a negative WAR after being the best running back in the NFL the year before, when the offensive line was good, when everything was cooking, and Jonathan Taylor looked like the next Derrick Henry, looked like the next dominant force at running back and was absolutely elite, and he was the best running back in the league in terms of PFF WAR. And then that plummeted to a negative rating, not because Jonathan Taylor became a bad player overnight, because the offensive line fell to rack and ruin. The offense itself stopped functioning. The quarterback was garbage. And the same running back in a completely different environment falls off a cliff. So it's how dependent the running back is and how dependent his production and therefore value is on a bunch of other things. Whereas generally speaking, an offensive tackle, Trent Williams, in any system, in any offense, is going to look really, really good.
Yeah, and then the distribution thing that I said, there's not a whole lot. It's almost impossible for a starting running back to have negative WAR. It is possible, which you just mentioned Taylor, but that is rare.
Right.
It is much more common for, say, a starting tackle or an edge defender to have pretty low negative WAR. So the distribution for an edge defender or an offensive tackle is really, really wide. So when you get that guy that's 0.3, which is a good number, it's more important. It's more valuable because the running back distribution's a lot tighter.